Welcome to the Mind Cut series.
Hey there.
In this deep dive, we're pulling out some really potent insights.
Yeah, we've got material from a conversation with a former Secret Service agent.
Right, someone who's seen a lot protecting presidents, law enforcement, and they even have a master's in forensic psychology. So a really interesting mix.
Definitely. And we're trying to get past the, surface level stuff.
Our mission here is to unpack the practical things, the profound ideas about, like, self-reliance.
Understanding people, really understanding them.
And how to handle our relationships better, getting a real grip on it.
Exactly. We're diving into some pretty core questions, things that affect how you live and interact every day.
Like, how can we stop needing other people's approval just to, chase our own goals?
And how do you actually see past what people say? Get to their real intentions.
What's the best way to communicate, especially when things get tense or difficult?
Yeah, and what does it really take to be resilient? Adaptable. Because life rarely sticks to the plan, right? So true. Okay, let's jump straight into something I think trips a lot of us up.
What's that?
This idea that we need, external backup or permission before we can even start something.
Yeah. Waiting for the green light.
The agent we're looking at puts it pretty bluntly. Let me find the quote here. You can't look to other people to support you for you to go do something. If you're saying, you need to give me this so I can do this, they're not the problem. Your thinking is the problem.
Wow. That is blunt. Doesn't pull any punches.
Right. Sounds almost harsh, maybe. But when you really think about it.
Well, it completely flips where the responsibility lies, doesn't it? It's so easy to point outwards and say, oh, if only they'd give me X, then I could do Y.
Totally.
But this view says, hang on, the real blockage is often internal.
Yeah.
It's that need for external validation you've created in your head.
Is it like a fear of just owning it? Taking the first step yourself?
Could be. Or maybe, a kind of learned helplessness. We train ourselves, maybe without realizing it, to wait for cues from others before we act. That rings true. I think everyone's felt that kind of paralysis, just waiting. You tell yourself, can't start the business without funding, or can't follow that passion till my partner's fully on board.
Right. The source even mentions kids with immigrant parents who face pushback on non-traditional careers.
Yeah, that feeling of needing someone else to say, okay, go ahead, before you feel allowed to move. But what's the actual cost of just sitting there waiting?
Well, the cost is your own agency, isn't it? Your power to act. If you make external stuff the deciding factor, you're basically handing over control. It can breed this dependent mindset.
And then you end up blaming others if things don't happen.
Exactly. It's their fault I'm stuck. But the agent's point seems to be real empowerment comes from inside. Believing you can start, you can push through, no matter what support you have right now.
Okay, so that leads into this other really interesting bit about the art of letting go.
Ah, yes. But not in a passive way.
Right. It's about managing your mental energy. That story about the $1 million debt really jumped out at me. Imagine owing that much. The urge to just obsess over it, replay it constantly, must be huge.
Oh, absolutely.
But the choice was to just let things be. How does that even work? Practically.
Well, I think the key distinction is between acceptance and just giving up, resignation.
Okay.
Letting things be in this context isn't about inaction. It's about seeing what's actually outside your immediate control right now.
And refusing to let that chew up all your mental bandwidth.
Precisely. Think about it. If you're constantly replaying some frustrating argument or worrying about something you can't fix right this second,
you're just draining energy.
Exactly. Energy you could be using for stuff you can control. Doing the work, like the source says. It's about being strategic with your focus.
That makes a lot of sense. Focus on the levers you can actually pull. And this connects straight into that warning about comparing ourselves to others, which is just everywhere now, isn't it? Social media.
Oh, it's constant. And that Secret Service training story with the shooting targets.
Yeah, where everyone could see how everyone else was doing. Brutal.
Right. So the pressure wasn't just hitting your own target, but constantly checking how you stacked up against the guy next to you. How does that kind of comparison mess with us?
Well, it seems like the big danger is it can completely derail your own motivation, right? Pull you off your path.
Yeah. When you're always looking left and right, checking out what others are doing, what they're achieving, what they're showing off.
You start measuring yourself by their ruler, not your own.
Exactly. Instead of focusing on your own goals, your own values, it can stir up envy, self-doubt.
Or even just lead you to copy others instead of figuring out your own way.
That training analogy is perfect. Staring at someone else's target makes you miss your own. The real game is internal. Are you improving? Are you moving towards your goals? Not chasing someone else's highlights.
Okay, this next part is really counterintuitive, I think, about mentorship.
Yeah. We're always told you need a mentor, right? Find someone to guide you.
But the expert in our source apparently never had a traditional one.
Nope. Instead, they went through this incredibly intense, often really harsh training. NYPD, Secret Service.
That green line of death still. Wow. And the instructor's yelling stuff like, "You're a loser, you suck, quit." It sounds like it was designed to break people. How on earth did that build resilience?
It does challenge the usual ideas, doesn't it? Normally, mentorship is about support, encouragement.
Yeah.
But these training programs sound like they ran on stress inoculation, like getting vaccinated against pressure.
How so?
By deliberately pushing recruits right to their absolute limits physically. Mentally, they basically forced them to dig deep and find internal resources just to cope.
A trial by fire. Literally, sometimes maybe.
Pretty much. It wasn't nurturing, clearly. But it seems to have forged this deep self-reliance because often there was just no outside help to lean on. You either found the grit inside yourself to keep going,
Or you washed out.
right?
It's like that old saying, learning to swim by being chucked in the deep end.
Oh.
And the source mentions family and friends weren't always cheering them on either. So pressure from all sides.
Mm-hmm.
So with no external validation, no cheerleading squad, this brutal training basically forced them to develop their own internal compass. A belief in themselves, even when everyone else was saying, you can't do it.
That's exactly what it sounds like. When the outside world is constantly tough or even hostile, you learn fast that your main source of strength has to be internal.
You build a thick skin.
Yeah, and a strong inner voice that pushes back against all that external doubt. It shows that resilience isn't just bouncing back after one bad thing. It's also about just enduring, holding your ground when things are consistently unsupportive.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Understanding people. This is critical everywhere, right?
Absolutely.
And the source really throws cold water on any, simple ideas about judging people based on how nice they seem.
Yeah, that statement is pretty stark. Evil people do bad things. Good people do bad things. Good people take advantage. Good people will hurt you.
It's sobering, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the practical takeaway there for how we should interact with people?
I think the core thing is separating outward appearance from actual behavior. It's so easy to slap a label on someone, oh, they're nice, or they're a good person, and use that as a shortcut.
But those labels can be totally misleading.
Exactly. The source hammers home. Watch the patterns of behavior over time. What do they consistently do? Not just what they say or how polite they are.
So things like, are they reliable? Do their actions actually match their words? How do they treat, say, the waiter when they think no one important is looking?
Mm-hmm. Those are the real clues. That's what you should be paying attention to.
So it's less about trusting someone because they seem nice.
And more about observing their actions to see if they earn your trust. That trust but verify idea fits perfectly here.
Yeah. Go in with an open mind, sure, but keep your eyes open. Watch the evidence.
Right. And that links to the stuff about imbalanced relationships too, The giver-taker dynamic, that feels really common.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
How do those patterns even start? And what can you actually do about them?
Well, they often creep up slowly, right? Maybe you want to be helpful or you want people to like you.
So you start giving more. Time, energy, whatever.
Yeah, and the other person gets used to taking. It becomes the norm. And both people actually play a part in keeping it going.
So what's the fix?
First step is just recognizing the pattern, seeing it clearly. Then you need to start setting healthier boundaries.
Saying no sometimes.
Yeah.
Communicating your own limits.
Exactly. And this is crucial, being willing to step back or maybe even walk away entirely if the imbalance just keeps going and it's hurting you.
That's tough, though.
It is. But the key seems to be accepting people for who they consistently show you they are right now, not based on who you wish they were or their supposed potential.
Okay. Now, the source also talks about the contrast between, say, Secret Service world, superstructured, integrity is everything.
Or high stakes, yeah.
And then, regular civilian life, which can be less predictable.
Definitely. The difference in reliability, even just basic stuff like being on time or doing what you said you'd do, it's noticeable.
So what's the point there about personal conduct?
It really just underlines how fundamental personal integrity and reliability are. They're the bedrock of trust and competence wherever you are.
Even if the consequences aren't as immediate as in presidential protection.
Absolutely. Even small lapses matter. Being dependable, following through it builds trust, shows respect. It's just a solid foundation for, well, everything, personally, professionally.
And this connects to that really vital idea of adapting to the world.
Instead of trying to bend the world to your expectations.
Which isn't about being fake or losing your values, is it?
No, not at all. It's about being smart, being effective in different situations. That story about switching communication styles.
With the emotional nanny versus the potentially lying suspect.
Yeah. It brings it to life, doesn't it? What's the core skill there?
It seems like it's genuine understanding plus flexibility.
Exactly. Adaptability isn't putting on an act. It's realizing, okay, this person in this situation needs a certain approach for me to actually get through or get the best outcome.
So with the nanny, maybe empathy works best. With the suspect, maybe more direct questions.
Right. You need to understand their perspective, or at least try to, and then adjust your behavior to communicate effectively. It takes self-awareness, being able to step outside your usual way of talking.
And listening plays a huge role here too.
Yeah.
Add advice. Drop a question and go quiet. So simple,
But so powerful. Why do you think it works so well?
well, silence gives people space, doesn't it? Space to think, maybe to reveal more than they would if you kept jumping in.
Mm-hmm. When you ask something and then just wait. Resist that urge to fill the silence. Offer your own opinion.
You give them the floor. It probably makes them feel heard too.
Totally. It
Yeah.
signals you're actually interested, not just waiting for your turn. You can uncover so much valuable info that way. That coffee shop manager story is a classic example, right?
Yeah, trying to fix the problem before actually hearing the whole problem.
Exactly. Sometimes people just need to vent, to feel understood, before they're even open to solutions. Interrupting that process is counterproductive.
And a big piece of making all this work, the adapting, the listening, is managing our own ego.
Oh, huge. The source suggests our ego is often the biggest roadblock. How does it get in the way?
Well, ego wants to be right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It wants to win the argument, avoid looking stupid or vulnerable.
Yeah. So when ego's driving, you're focused on your point, your feelings, not really trying to understand the other person.
You interrupt, you defensive, dismiss ideas.
All that stuff. So managing the ego means being more open, more willing to listen, even if you disagree, maybe compromising sometimes. It's about prioritizing the outcome, understanding, connection, results, over just needing to feel superior.
Okay, finally, let's get into the tricky stuff around truth
Yeah,
and the need for a non-judgmental approach.
right. The agent is pretty upfront. Everybody lies, just in different ways.
Yeah, the naive liar concept.
And the key idea is creating like emotional safety, making it feel okay for people to actually tell you the truth, even if it's uncomfortable. Why is being judgmental so bad for finding out what's real?
Well, judgment just slams the door shut, doesn't it? It creates fear.
Exactly. If people think they'll be attacked or shamed or punished for being honest.
They'll clam up or
Right.
lie more.
Right. That cheating partner example makes it crystal clear. If you go in yelling accusations.
Defensiveness, denial, end of conversation.
But if you can manage your reaction, stay non-judgmental, at least initially,
You create a safer space. They might actually tell you what happened.
it becomes strategic. You're gathering intel, as the source calls it, so you can make a smart decision. It's playing chess, not checkers.
That personal story about discovering a really painful truth, the broken heart one, using that careful, non-judgmental questioning, that really shows the power.
Yeah. Managing your own immediate emotional storm to get the information needed.
Which then lets you make an empowered choice about what to do next.
Precisely. It's information first, emotional reaction, maybe later, or managed differently. It gives you control back.
Okay, so all of this seems to lead towards this final big concept,
Yeah.
cultivating emotional neutrality.
That neutrality mindset. Learned in those pressure cooker environments, it's about smoothing out the really extreme emotional highs and lows.
Trying to stay more even-keeled. How does that help in just regular life?
Well, if you cultivate that neutrality, you become less reactive. External events don't throw you off balance quite so easily.
You don't get totally swept up in a temporary win or completely crushed by a setback.
Exactly. It fosters a kind of inner stability, resilience. Things happen, good and bad, but they don't dictate your entire emotional state. You can respond more thoughtfully instead of just reacting.
Sounds like a much calmer way to live, frankly. The source ties this to surviving really major stuff like 9/11, a near-death experience.
Right. Events that bring intense gratitude and acceptance. And that leads to that powerful idea of being okay to go.
Meaning?
Meaning living in a way that feels authentic, true to your values, so you minimize regrets. living fully.
So that whatever happens, whenever it happens, you feel like you lived a good, meaningful life.
That seems to be the essence of it, a sense of contentment, preparedness, having done the work internally.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, we've really dug into quite a lot here.
Yeah, the power of looking inward for validation, not outward.
The importance of watching behavior, not just judging by niceness.
The strategic edge you get from adapting your communication, from really listening.
That nuanced way of seeking truth without judgment.
And finally, that strength you find in emotional neutrality.
Our aim, like always in these deep dives, is to give you a shortcut to really grappling with these big ideas.
And maybe leave you with something to think about. Where are you perhaps relying too much on external validation?
What patterns are you really seeing in the people around you, if you look closely?
How much are you truly listening versus just waiting to talk?
And maybe what steps could you take towards a bit more of that emotional neutrality? Could you get closer to feeling okay to go?
These aren't easy questions, but thinking about them can genuinely lead to a more empowered, more meaningful way of moving through the world.
Definitely. We hope you keep exploring these themes and see how these insights, drawn from some pretty intense experiences, might apply in your own life for clearer understanding, more self-reliance, and maybe more effective action.